So our topic for today is all about the child and adolescent learners and learning principles. So the first lesson in this topic is the learner-centered psychological principles. So let us first tackle what is psychology. So when we say psychology, it plays a very important role in understanding the teaching and learning processes. So many innovations in the learning process have been made possible because of the contribution of psychology. So psychology is the branch of science that studies human behavior and helps educators and teachers understand the nature of diversity of learners. So psychology has a very big role in the name of education, since it helps the educators and teachers to understand the nature of diversity of the students on how they will focus on how they will do the learning and teaching processes. So a brief information that in the early 1990s, the American Psychological Association, or very known as APA or APA, appointed a task force on psychology in education to conduct further studies in both psychology and education. The purpose of this group was to conduct studies that could further enhance the current understanding of educators on the nature of the learners about the teaching and learning processes. The end goal was to improve the existing school practices so that learning becomes more meaningful to all kinds of learners. So, let us first tackle the first factors in this topic. So, the first one is the cognitive and metacognitive factors. So, when we say cognitive factors, it refers to the mental processes the learner undergo as they process information. The way learners think about their thinking as they engage in the mental task is the concern of the metacognitive factors. So the first type of this factor is the nature of learning process. So the learning of complex subject matter is most effective when it is an intentional process of constructing meaning from information and experience. So that means that an intentional process is more effective than just doing it without any reason, or it gives you more motivations to learn more. So the second one is the goals of learning process. The successful learner, over time with support and instructional guidance, can create meaningful, coherent representations of knowledge. So meaning that if there are supports from or guidance from teachers or parents, so the students will have an energy or will be motivated to learn more or to study more. So the third one is construction of knowledge. So the successful learner can link new information with existing knowledge in meaningful ways. So from the word construction, so that means that you have an stock knowledge and you will be using it to have a more meaningful way of learning or having a good ideas learning processes. And the fourth one is the strategic thinking. So the successful learner can create and use a repertoire of thinking and reasoning strategies to achieve complex learning goals. There are many strategies to be used by a teacher or a learner to have a successful learning and teaching processes. So, the next one is thinking about thinking. So, higher order strategies for selecting and monitoring mental operations facilitate creative and critical thinking. So, it means that if you are selecting and monitoring one person or a thing, it is much better. It means that you can have or you can facilitate creative and critical thinking of a person. So, the next one is the context of learning. So, learning is influenced by environmental factors, including culture, technology, and instructional practices. So, in learning, or we are going to learn, it will be based also in our culture. So, there are many cultures or other cultures that don't believe that education is the best way to have a good future. So it also also depends upon the culture in learning processes. The next one is the technology. So technology has a very big impact or plays a very important role in our community nowadays because it becomes our way in communicating and learning processes and also in gaining more knowledge. And also instructional practices. So there are many people, or it depends upon the people surrounded by you, if they have that practice that will have to learn, will have to continue studying for them to be able to have a good future. So since we are done with the cognitive and metacognitive factors, we will be now moving to the motivational and affective factors. How the learners push themselves to learn and how they value learning are the concerns of the motivational factors. Meanwhile, the affective factors relate to the attitude, feelings, and emotions that learner put into the learning task. So in the affective factors, it relates to the attitude, feelings, and emotions of a one person to have or to be motivated to continue studying or to learn or to continue learning. So the first thing of the motivational and affective factor is the motivational and emotional influences on learning. So it is all about what and how much are learned are influenced by the learner's motivation. So it means that it depends upon on how the students learn or what are the learnings on how the learners being motivated in learning that topic or in gaining that knowledge. So the next one is the intrinsic motivation to learn. So the learner's creativity, higher order thinking, and natural curiosity all contribute to the motivation to learn. So every one of us, or as students, have our own creativity, higher order thinking, and of course, a natural curiosity. So each one of us has a curiosity for us to be able to know that kind of thing or that kind of work. So that three has a very big impact or has a big contribution for us to motivate to learn. So the next one is effects of motivation on effort. So acquisition of sophisticated knowledge and skills requires extensive learner's effort and guided practice. So we as a students need some efforts and guidance for us to be able to learn something and to make the learning processes more soft and for us to be able to do what they wanted us to do. So now let us move on to the next factor, which is the developmental and social factors. So development and social factor as well as individual differences are considered critical factors in the capacity of learners to engage in the learning. So each one of us is unique. So each one of us also has a different kinds of ways in learning or in gaining knowledge. So the first part of this factor is the developmental influences on learning. So as individuals develop, there are different opportunities and constraints for learning. We as students, as we develop ourselves, we also has a different opportunities and constraints for learning because we have different or we have a lot of opportunities to gain more knowledge. So the next one is the social influences on learning. So learning is influenced by social interactions, interpersonal relations, and communication with others. So also, learning can be done or can be influenced when you are scrolling your cell phone, your Facebook, or your social media accounts. In that way, you can learn something because you will gain informations or you can read informations from others. Also, interpersonal relations. When we say interpersonal relations, it is all about communicating to someone or by others for you to be able to gain knowledge. And the last one is communication with others. Just like what I said, it is very important or we can gain learnings or we can gain knowledge if we are communicating by someone or to others that has also an idea. So since we are done with the factor, let us move on to the other factors, which is the individual differences factors. So the first type of this factor is the individual differences in learning. So learners have different strategies, approaches, and capabilities for learning that are a function of prior experience and heredity. So as I have said earlier, each one of us has a unique way of learning or gaining knowledge for us to do the specific tasks that are be given to us. So we have different strategies to do for us to be able to conduct that specific topic or specific activities. We also have different approaches for us to be able to gain the knowledge that we wanted to know or to answer the questions that are in our heads for us to be able to know or to gain the knowledge that we all wanted. So the next one is the learning and diversity. So learning is most effective when differences in learners' linguistic, cultural, and social backgrounds are taken into account. So multicultural teaching encourages teachers to consider their learners' linguistic, cultural, and social backgrounds. So it is very important also you as a teacher for you to include the cultural and social backgrounds or linguistic of a students for you to be able to adjust what you want to do or what you wanted to do to your student. Because what if you step into their culture and you didn't know? So it is very big a shame to you as a teacher for not to be able to respect the culture or the linguistic and the social background of your student. Next. So standards and assessment. Setting appropriately high and challenging standards and assessing the learner as well as the learning progress including diagnostic, process, and outcome assessment are integral parts of the learning processes. So when we say standards and assessment, it means that you are doing an assessment that has more or that has a very high standard for the students to be able to pursue the things that he wanted or she wanted to do. Because if you have a high expectation to your student, of course, they will have the courage to learn more or to engage more for them to be able to meet the standards that you set up. So that's all for today. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned something. Thank you and bye!